Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch Premier League, Women's Super League, EFL, Scottish Premiership and much more. Live on Sky Sports.
All right, it is Thursday evening. Delighted to be joined by John Giles. Evening, John.
Evening, Nathan.
How are you keeping?
I'm good, thank you.
Nervy weekend, I think, to put it mildly, if you're a Leeds United supporter.
Yeah, well, there's three in a minute, Nathan, as we know. But I'd say Leeds look more in trouble than the other two.
Yeah, the psychology of it'll be quite interesting. It's straightforward for Leeds. They have to win. They're not protecting anything. They've got to go out there on Sunday and somehow beat Tottenham. Whereas for Everton, you know, they could lose and stay up. Maybe the mindset will be slightly different there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be different for them all in many ways. But I mean, when they're in the position they're in, Everton and Leeds, they have to win to have a chance. I mean, Everton have it mostly in their hands than the other two. You know, if they win, it doesn't matter what Leicester do or Leeds do. The two of them are down. That's a fact. So it's fairly complicated, despite the fact there's only three teams in it. You know, if Everton lose, they stay on 33 points. Leicester can win, Leeds can win, and go above them, and then it's between Leicester. It could all boil down to the goals against, Nathan, you know?
The pressure of a game...
The goal difference.
Yeah. The pressure of a game like this, you know, I heard some players talking recently who've been involved in relegation scraps, and of walking through the gates of the stadium and the guy in the door going, come on lads, we need this today, knowing that if they went down that he would probably lose his job. And the struggle to deal with the impact that defeat would have on so many people. I know you always said you were very good at being able to cope with pressure. When you go back through your career, what was the most pressurised occasion you've ever been involved in?
Well, obviously, if you're near the relegation zone, that's the more pressure than any time. And I was involved in it with Manchester United, believe it or not, Nathan, in 1963. We went on to win the cup, but we played Manchester City. It was Manchester City and ourselves, very, very down in the table, And lucky enough, Manchester City went down that year, and we were down at Main Road at that time, being beaten. And we got a penalty, and Albert Quicksall scored, which kept us only a point or two above City. So that was the nearest I've been to a relegation, and it was very, very worrying at the particular time. You know, Manchester City were involved, Manchester United involved, and funny enough, we went on to win the cup, and we were just out of the relegation zone before the cup final, Nathan.
The money involved...
At least when I was there, we were never involved in a relegation fight.
The money involved is obviously far, far greater now than it was back in 1963, but there's probably, 10 days between that game in the league against Manchester City and then playing a cup final against Leicester. The pressure, as far as you can remember, is it just a totally different thing when you're fighting for the trophy compared to when you are fighting for survival? Oh yeah, I think the fighting for survival is the most you worry about. Like if you obviously if you're in the cup final, you want to win the cup final, but it's not relegation. If you lose it, which at least we did, we won it, we lost it, and it's a setback, but only in a certain way. Relegation is going down, going into the second division. In case of these, the three teams we're talking about now, really, really dangerous. I mean, if the two of them were playing, if there was four teams involved and those three teams were involved in the semi-final of the cup this week, you wouldn't have the same tension as you have now. This is really, really serious, and in this day and age, going down into the league, in the next league, Nathan, is you're losing the crowd. You're losing the big. Say for Leeds, if Leeds go down, they're not playing Manchester United and Manchester City and Liverpool and all the big gates that they get now. You're in what was then the second division. And everything suffers. Everybody suffers. The crowd suffer. You don't have the big payment from the television now.
You know, you'd like to get whatever it is, 150 million. I think if you go down, you get a parachute of maybe 40. So there's huge things at stake on Sunday.
I presume you don't want your manager reminding you of what's at stake as you go into a game like this.
When you don't need it, the manager, in my opinion, should be trying to lessen the tension in it. You know, he's the man that's getting the team ready. The players, he's got to pick the team. He's got to get them ready. He's got to do the best he can to do it. The players will be nervous enough anyway. So they need more leadership now. These three teams at the weekend than ever before.
The conversation around the quality of these three teams is probably irrelevant at this stage. You know, 2 months ago we would have looked at Leicester and James Maddison and Harvey Barnes and even Jamie Vardy, if he got back to form. You would have looked at Leicester and thought, well, there's definitely enough quality in that team. This Sunday is about something very different, I'd imagine. It's about a bit of character. It's not about necessarily having 11 players better than the opposition. It's about which of these groups can actually take that pressure and deal with it and cope with it and somehow go out and play their best football.
Well, that's what they have to do, Nathan. And don't forget, the managers that have come in don't really know the players as well. I mean, Dyche has his longer, but Allardyce has just come in. The Leicester manager has just come in.
Yeah, Dean Smith.
In recent Dean Smith in recent times. So it's desperation, really, that the clubs have had to do what they've done in recent times. Allardyce coming in for 4 matches, Dean Smith coming in a little bit longer. In fact, he left a couple of the players out that you mentioned against Newcastle the other day.
Yeah, what did you think of that decision?
Well, they've been two of the best players, Nathan. You know, you have to be in the manager's position, Dean Smith's position there, to know why. You know, but it looked odd that two of his best players had been left out. You know, obviously he must have felt that they're not doing their stuff, and that's what you have to do. And that's why, you know, when teams are in the position that Leeds are in and Everton are in, it's desperation situation. I mean, I think Dyche has handled it better than the other two because he's been there longer and he knows the players, he knows his best players, and he has to live with them. I mean, he's in the best position, as we know. I mean, he's playing. Who is they playing? Bournemouth, is it on Sunday?
Yeah, Everton at home to Bournemouth.
And he knows if they win that match, end of story. You know, Leeds are in a position. If they win the match, they still mightn't get out of it because what Everton do. And the same with Leicester. You know, like, definitely Dyche is in the best position, there's no doubt about that. If he wins, the two of them will go down. Now after that, it could go down to goal difference, Nathan. Say if Everton lose, then it's goal difference between Leeds and Leicester if they both win, you know. And Leeds have the worst record in the goals against, the goal difference. So it'd be fascinating to see exactly what will happen, but definitely it couldn't go better. It couldn't. I think Dyche couldn't be in a better position that he's in at this particular stage now, with one match to go.
Sam Allardyce, if it all comes off on Sunday, I know you're not his biggest fan, but I'm sure he'll have plenty to say about his achievements if he can somehow get a victory for Leeds and if Everton and Leicester slip up. Have you seen anything from the 3 games so far that would give you hope going into that final game against Tottenham? Not really,
Nathan. You know, like Everton and Dyche, I think, are in a very, very strong position there. But I haven't seen anything from Leeds at all. I mean, West Ham last week beat them well. He's got 1 point from 12 since he's gone to it, and last week's was poor against West Ham. West Ham beat them well and could have beat them by more. So, you know, there's not much to look forward to in Leeds in hoping that they'll do it. But in football, Nathan, as you know, you never know what's going to happen. But you wouldn't, if you're putting money on it now, you wouldn't put it on Leeds doing what needs to be done. But there again, they're playing against Spurs. I mean, Spurs have nothing to play for. And they've had a bad time. I mean, they were beaten last week. Like Spurs, since the manager left early on, and have been poor, to say the least. And they have nothing to play for. They're not going to get into Europe. They're not going to go down. So what's their attitude going to be like with a manager that's not going to be there next year, we think? So you just don't know. But on paper, Everton are certainly in a position, if they win, end of story. It's in their hands. It's not in Leeds' hands. It's not in Leicester's hands. They have to hope that Everton don't do what they should be doing, or Leeds don't do it. All that goes into it. But Dyche is definitely in the best position in a big way.
Well, what we do know is that Manchester City are champions again. They are well clear of Arsenal. Obviously had that draw with Brighton last night, but it was all irrelevant after Arsenal's defeat against Nottingham Forest. 3 in a row for Pep Guardiola's side, joining Manchester United as the only other team to do that in the Premier League.
Yeah.
We've spoken about
it's 5 out of 6, Nathan. You know, I know 3 in a row, but 5 out of 6 as well. Like it's been phenomenal for Manchester City and Guardiola, no doubt about that. I mean, to come with the run at the end of this season. I mean, I think Arsenal at one stage were about 10 points in front. So it's been fantastic for Manchester City to do what they did.
The addition of Haaland, it's hard to believe we were having a conversation at one stage of the season questioning whether he had changed the way Manchester City play in a negative way. It has been quite remarkable what he has done. Does his addition to this Manchester City side make it the best of all those title-winning teams?
What was the great goal scorer they had before?
Aguero.
You know what I mean? He did his stuff as well. He was phenomenal. Not as good as our man is now. You know, he didn't. I don't think he scored as many goals, but he scored a lot when they were winning the trophies. But Haaland has been brilliant. He was. I must say now, and I'm not patting myself up, but I never doubted his addition to Manchester City. Yeah. If somebody scored the amount of goals that he was, it's just that Manchester City weren't winning the matches at that particular time. But it wasn't his fault. For somebody that was scoring the amount of goals that he was scoring all year, you couldn't say, well, you know, he's not doing what he should be doing for Manchester City. That's exactly what he was bought to do. And it's proven to be the case as the season went along. It wasn't his fault. It was just that the team weren't playing as well as Manchester City, and it was him scoring the goals at that particular time. He's been phenomenal. There's no doubt. And then they did pick it up on the race, not for the first time. They've done it in a few seasons. When they needed to win in the last 10 or 12 matches, they've done it, and they've done it in a spectacular fashion this year. And Arsenal just melted away, really, by their standards.
And do you look at Arsenal melting away as a fault of Arsenal, or just inevitable because of the pressure and the brilliance of Manchester City?
Well, I don't think they had the players to do it. I mean, they you know, when it came to the real push against Liverpool, when they were winning 2-0 and then they finished up in a draw, I don't think they had the players to do what needed to be done. I think they collapsed at that time. But I don't know if you saw the papers over the weekend. There were some remarkable things about Arteta getting a dog in the dressing room. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
You know, I don't get that, Nathan. You know, like and the dog. What was the dog's name? What was Win or something, wasn't it?
I didn't see the dog's name. Pickles is the only dog I ever know when it comes to football.
Sorry?
I was going to say, was Pickles the dog that found the World Cup trophy? That's the only dog I know when it comes to football.
Yeah, well, they called this dog Win, I think.
Okay.
And then he had some plant or something. They just, like, I know football is strange and it can be a very strange situation, but like when you, in my opinion, when you're a manager like Guardiola did, you concentrate on the team and what the team has to do, Nathan. In my opinion, that's what you do. You know, you don't be bringing a dog into the dressing room for whatever reason to be a good company of the players. Anyway, it didn't make sense to me. But you know, they do blow it
ultimately, they lost an awful lot of matches that if you're going to win the league, you have to do your business on that, and they didn't do it. Now, he has improved in the season, Arteta, from last year. At least he made a run at it, but it was a big collapse. A big collapse from Arsenal's point of view.
Mikel Arteta said, "I feel like we are family and we need a dog to represent that family. I carefully chose the dog, and in my opinion it's a perfect representative of who we are right now. Her name is Win. We all love winning, and Win needs a lot of love. So the love for Win, that was basically the feeling. The reaction from the players and staff has been incredible. She's one of us. She's going to be on this journey with us together. Win needs accountability from us because we have to look after her emotions and what she needs."
Yeah. Don't get it, Nathan. Don't get that. I mean, from my experience in football, you talk about football, you put the team right on the pitch, which is the most important thing you can do. I can't see a dog being able to do that, no matter how good it is. It just, like, football is football. You do what the players have to do on the pitch to win matches. And that's good. You have to have the knowledge to do it. You have to have the personality to do it, to lead these particular players when they're doing it. I've never heard anything like this before.
According to ESPN, Win wears a tag which reads, "I'm not a dog, I'm a gooner. Come on, the Arsenal."
Yeah, well, I mean, how does that help you on the pitch, Nathan? Unless I'm missing something that all my time in football, in winning trophies or being on the pitch, where any time I was with a club, whether Manchester United or West Brom or Leeds, it was always about the team and the football and what went wrong. How do you put it right? What players do you do? Do you need to give them a bit of a telling off? The other players, some players you need to go softly. All those, that's all football. Like having a dog in the dressing room, I just don't see the merit of it, to be quite honest. I just don't.
Yeah. What would Jack Charlton's reaction have been if a dog arrived in the... Well, Jack loved animals, so he might have been all right with it.
Well, not in the dressing room. You have a dog at home. I had a dog for a while. I loved animals and cats and that. But I wouldn't relate them to football in any way whatsoever. You love animals. That's great. But when you're dealing with players and you're going to the Championship, or you're dealing with players in the dressing room, you have to talk about football. Okay, if some lad is having a bad time and his wife is not well, or then obviously the humanity comes into it, and you do the best you can with those particular players. But not an animal or a plant. I never heard of that before, ever. And I honestly don't see the benefit of it.
He took an olive tree along to team meetings, symbolising the need for daily care of the squad's roots. He said, "Another symbol at our club is our tree. It needs a lot of care as well. It's an olive tree. It's older than 150 years, similar to the club. We have to look after those roots every single day, make sure they don't get poisoned, don't get damaged, and it's in the right condition."
Yeah, well, I don't get that either. I just don't. I mean, you talk about football in the dressing room. Obviously, if the lads are having a bad time at home, and that you do as a manager, you do the best you can. But it's football. What happened on the Saturday? How do you put it right? And how you improve on it is putting things right week by week, Nathan. You don't do this. You eliminate that. You eliminate that, and you get to the players and you teach them you're in the wrong position. This is all football that you do on the pitch. That this is where it matters. Now the fullback's in the wrong position. You tell him out, you get him out, and you teach him. No, you don't. You've got to be here. You've got to be there. And the team generally, the fitness, the training, and all that. This is all football. That's what I was brought up with, and that's what I lived with when I went to Manchester United, when I went to Leeds, when I went to West Brom. It was always about football. And I was player manager of the Irish team. It was all about football.
You must have had a couple of managers, John, who did a couple of quirky things.
Well, I was with Matt Busby for a while. He never did anything quirky. I was with Don Revy. Don was a bit quirky, and he was superstitious. Don was very superstitious. But that didn't affect the players in any way. Do you know what I mean, Nathan?
If he was superstitious, and like I think I told you the story when I first went to Leeds. In those days, I got my boots got my boots with me from Old Trafford, and had them in a bag. And it was the first time I was there. I went to see him in the office, and I put the boots on the table, and we were talking for a while. And he said, "What's that there?" I said, "That's my boots." "What? Get them off the table, quick!" After that, because it was bad luck having them on. I didn't know, because Don was very superstitious like that, But when it came to football, when we were doing something wrong, what we should have been, he was putting us right in the football, putting us right on the football, attitude, fitness, all those things. That's what he concentrated on. But we never ever, I don't ever heard of a dog being mentioned of coming into the dressing room. Ever. Anywhere. Never. That's the last week when I read that and the plant. It's the first time I ever came across anything like that, Nathan. Now, maybe I'm old-fashioned and it's come into the game, but I never heard of it before.
I dare say that poor old Wynne has been pretty disappointed in what he's seen from the Arsenal players over the last few weeks. They've let her down badly.
But he hasn't worked, has it?
No.
I mean, you could get two dogs in. I don't think it's going to work. Like Arsenal had a good. I think Arteta has done a good job for them last year. He's got them in second in position, which the first time they've been there for a while. So he's made progress, isn't he? So maybe I'm wrong, Nathan. But certainly when it came to the crunch, they didn't do what needed to be done when Manchester City did. There's no doubt about that.
I want to talk to you about Brighton, because Roberto De Zerbi has been receiving a huge amount of praise for Brighton's achievement of finishing sixth. They're going to play Europa League football, but more so actually the style of football and the level of performance that he's got out of these players. I'm sure you were watching Brighton last night against Manchester City, which was a brilliantly entertaining game. What have you made of the job that De Zerbi has done?
I think it's remarkable, Nathan. If you look, and I must look it up again. If you look at the amount of players that have been sold for quite big money over the last 18 months or 2 years at the most, I've never seen it before in football, where some of the best players have been sold and the team has improved. So whoever is doing the recruitment is absolutely brilliant. And I think what they've done, I think they've gone to countries, Nathan, that wouldn't be Italy and Spain and the major countries you know of, to get players. And it makes sense if we look back on the World Cup, and we all were amazed at the performances of countries that weren't considered major footballing countries. And I think what they've done, whoever's done it there, has been very, very clever at Brighton. If you look at their players, there's a lot of those players they've recruited from what we would consider smaller countries.
Yeah, the likes of Estepinian, who's come in from, he was at Villarreal, but is from Ecuador. Enciso, who scored that wonder goal last night from Paraguay. Maybe we now include Ireland in those list of countries as well?
Oh, well, we've always had good players come from our country over the years. Over the years, if you look at some...
Not as many as of late, but you're probably seeing a bit more of...
We've got the lad at Brighton as well. They've recruited
Evan Ferguson, yeah.
He's only, 19, isn't he?
Not even that. Evan Ferguson is still 18.
He's brilliant. He's brilliant, that kid. He's going to be a great asset to us. But we've always produced players, Nathan, over the years. Unlike some of say, Japan and countries now that they're bringing top players from. And I think they're the first in on these players. They're amazing. And what the manager said is there's two of the players, he said, that could go. Well, he said if they've got to go, they've got to go. Which is amazing from a manager, because you want to keep your best players. So he obviously must know if those players go and they get the money for them, they've got more players coming along. They've been absolutely amazing. I mean, don't forget the other manager went to
Graham Potter.
He did a great job while he was there.
Yeah.
So whoever's recruiting the players, I mean, the manager's only as good as the players he has. So the recruitment is absolutely fantastic. And the way they play and the manner in which they play, having the courage to do it. The match I saw, I didn't actually see the match yesterday, but I saw the match last week. where they beat Liverpool. I think it was Liverpool they beat.
They beat Arsenal. Arsenal 3-0.
Sorry, they beat Arsenal. They killed them. Playing out from the back, Nathan. I've never been in favour of playing out from the back, but the manner in which they played and the risks that I regard as risks doing it, but they did it time after time after time. I haven't seen any team doing it in the way they've been doing it. So the coach has been absolutely brilliant. And they've got one of the European places next year, haven't they? Yeah,
they're in the Europa League next year.
It's fantastic. He's got Guardiola probably get manager of the year. He deserves it. But this fella won't be far behind him in what they've actually done with the amount of players they've sold and the way they play. The players he has is absolutely fantastic.
As you said, he's been very honest about what's likely to happen this summer, that Alexis McAllister is going to go, Moises Caicedo's probably likely to go as well, but he wants to retain the likes of Mitoma for another season and help them progress for another year. And I guess that's part of Brighton's plan, that when they're attracting these young players, that they will say, if a big club comes in, we will let you go, we won't stand in your way. When you look at McAllister, he's been strongly linked with Liverpool. Does he look like a Liverpool player?
I think he's a very good player, Nathan. I think Arsenal are interested in him as well. But it's just astonishing that the manager is saying, look, if he has to go, he has to go. I mean, I know when I was manager, I'd hate players to be gone, those type of players. But that's what he's obviously signed on for at the club, to say, look, if we get offers in for players, then they've got to go. But it's I mean, look at what they would do if they actually kept the players. You know, the amount of players, the top players that have gone. I've never seen it before in football, where you could sell as many of those players and still improve every year.
Yeah,
it's incredible, absolutely incredible.
Speaking of Liverpool, we'll have to see what happens tonight between Manchester United and Chelsea, but it looks almost certain now that Liverpool are going to miss out on Champions League football next season, barring a complete collapse by United. Do you look at Liverpool and the potential of McAllister coming in, and you'd have to imagine 2 or 3 more players arriving during the summer, and I think they need a total rebuild this summer, or can 1 or 2 players make a big difference and get them back, not just competing for the Champions League, but where they want to be, and that's pushing Manchester City all the way again?
Well, I'm amazed at what hasn't happened at Liverpool. They have recruited players, you know, and then there's some matches, because they say, well, the midfield is getting old, and then some of the matches you see, and they've been absolutely brilliant, up to last week where they'd won 6 or 7 or 8 matches on the bounce. You know, it's the consistency that we don't see from Liverpool, which is remarkable in many ways. You know, he's been there for 7 years. You know, does it get to the stage where the players don't really listen to the manager as much as they did? You don't know until you're inside the club. But certainly it's been a bad season, really bad season for Liverpool. I mean, they beat Manchester United, was it 7? You know, how do you do that in one match and then you go next week to wherever they go and one of the lesser teams and get beat? It was totally inconsistent with Liverpool. I mean, they've signed some players as well, Nathan. I mean, it's been a bad season for Liverpool. And is it, you know, the manager, it does happen where, you know, the manager becomes too familiar, or they don't listen to him as much as they did, or whatever. It does happen, Nathan. So we just have to wait and see. But I think the amount of players that they have and the calibre of players that they have at Liverpool has been a really, really bad season for them.
The too familiar potential is interesting, because I think some Liverpool supporters would accuse Klopp of that he has seen a lot of these players achieve real greatness at the club over the last 3 or 4 years and win titles and win Champions League, and that he's almost too loyal, that he probably sees things in training that thinks they can get to that level on a regular basis that just isn't happening on the pitch. That I guess is a difficult thing for managers as well, the players who have given them so much, to know the right time to cut them loose.
Well, exactly. I mean, in football, as you know, yesterday's gone. Yesterday's gone. You know, as the song says, and you have to keep on top of it, week in, week out, year in, year out, and it can happen. I mean, I think it's happened to Klopp before. I mean, he's had previous clubs where he's been 7 years there, and he's left. and he's been remarkable for the 7 years. But he hasn't been remarkable this year in terms of the inconsistency. You know, we were all talking before the Manchester United match about the players being old and they're not doing this, they're not. They go out on that day and they have a Manchester United 7-0. Well, how are you able to do that in one match and not do it in the next match, Nathan? That's what makes the great teams, because they're consistent in their effort in every match. You know, you see Manchester City. They had a bad spell, but they came back and back and back to do what they did over the last few years. Liverpool, for a long time with Klopp, have done it. As you say, they won the Champions League, they've won the league, they've won the cup. He's been a remarkable manager all those years. So why all of a sudden we can ask ourselves, it's happened this season? You know, was Salah getting the new contract? Did that come into it? You know, because that can happen. You know, the money corrupts. It can happen. That, well, why is he getting more than us? And it can happen in a club. That could be. But you have to be inside the club to know exactly the spirit or the lack of spirit with these players. These are terrific players, and the players they bought, Nathan, the forwards, are excellent. They're excellent. But it hasn't been the Liverpool that we know the Liverpool team to be over the last few years. And maybe it's time that it has happened before, where they do need to change a manager. Or what can he do to get them back to where we know they can be? That's the manager's job. And we haven't seen that this year at Liverpool.
John, great stuff as always. We'll talk to you next Thursday.
Yeah. Thanks, Nathan. Speak to you then.
John Giles with us every Thursday night here on Off the Ball. Of course, if you miss any of that, you can get all of the podcasts with John on the OTB Podcast Network.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch Premier League, Women's Super League, EFL, Scottish Premiership and much more. Live on Sky Sports.